Hi, my name is Christina Seston. Welcome to The Truth About Hypertension. Hypertension is a very dangerous disease with fatal consequences. This show contains important information for those people with hypertension and those who are concerned about hypertension. My guest today on the show is Dr. Young-Soo Kim. Dr. Kim has been a regular guest on this series of shows with me. Dr. Kim is from MIT, and he operates one of the most successful biomedical companies in North America. Welcome, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.
So I understand, Dr. Kim, that the last show we did together, The Truth About Diabetes, has been an incredible success. So congratulations again.
Thanks to you. I think it was quite timely. The diabetes was becoming a global epidemic, and it was quite timely that we did that educational program.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I understand it's been broadcast in China. Is that
a
correct?
few times over the national TV
Excellent.
network and translated into a few countries' languages.
Wonderful. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so today, Dr. Kim, you're back to talk about another very serious disease.
Hypertension.
Hypertension.
High blood pressure.
Yeah. So can you tell us just a little bit about the dangers of hypertension?
It's more prevalent than diabetes.
So more common.
Yeah, just in the States, 50 million people have it. But 30% of them are undiagnosed. So it's quite prevalent and dangerous disease.
Right, and so that's quite a high number, 30% undiagnosed. Why? Why are they undiagnosed?
Because it doesn't have a symptom unless it becomes really, really serious. Yeah, people say some stiff neck and a certain pattern of headache, but other than that, there are no symptoms.
So there's not much to go on.
Yeah, and then the blood pressure changes hour to hour, and it changes depending on mood.
Right.
So
it's hard to get a reading. It's hard to get a fix.
That's correct. And so there are so many undiagnosed people.
Right, right. So, Dr. Kim, why is hypertension or high blood pressure, why is it so bad?
Because when there is a high blood pressure in blood vessel, the blood vessel itself becomes thicker and stiff. So blood vessel itself, the pipe loses elasticity.
Right.
And then it's a matter of time that rupture happens here and there.
Right.
Also, the hardening of artery, arteriosclerosis. And then once this happens, bad cholesterols and fats get accumulated in the pipe.
Right, so there's less, it's more constricted, less flow.
That's correct. And then therefore, sometimes it blocks the supply of oxygen to key organs like heart.
The heart, yeah.
And then once there is an insufficient supply of oxygen, the muscles of heart grows thicker.
Right.
And it gets damaged permanently.
Right.
Then it's a matter of time that a person has a heart attack. Yeah.
Right.
It's very serious. And stroke.
Right. Stroke is an important concern as well.
Basically, heart failure is the #1 cause of death in America.
Right. Yes.
And stroke is #3.
Right.
And it is known that 13% of all deaths globally happens due to hypertension.
13% of all deaths globally are
happens,
somehow connected with hypertension.
Yeah, directly connected.
Directly connected.
Yeah. So it's the #1 killer.
Right.
And then other diseases such as kidney failure, 25% of all kidney failure comes from hypertension.
So that's extremely high.
But this is #1 killer.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kim, traditional treatments, how do we normally approach something like hypertension?
Basically, once you are diagnosed, doctors tell you that you have to be on this prescription drug for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And there are a few varieties of this prescription drug. And then, for example, diuretics, which is basically stimulation of urination.
Right.
So the liquid of the body just is lessened.
Right.
Yeah. And then we have beta blockers.
Heard of beta blockers.
Yeah. And then we have vasodilators.
Vasodilators?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's not worry about these
Okay.
technical terms.
Right.
Yeah. But there are a few varieties of this.
So these are classes of pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, it comes under different brand names.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they usually recommend those pharmaceutical drugs, and they usually recommend low sodium diets.
Right. Right. So you said that you're on these drugs forever.
That's what they recommend.
That must be extremely frustrating to hear
That's
as a
correct.
patient who's diagnosed with
That's
hypertension.
correct.
Now, what about increasing the dosages? Is that something that happens over time?
Yeah, they usually increase the dosage and in variety. So at first, patients have one drug only, and then 2 drugs, 3 drugs. The problem is that all these drugs are quite bad in side effects.
Right, and I would think if you're talking about drugs for the rest of your life and a combination of drugs that you're now talking about, there's a lot of expense involved with that.
Yeah, and then usually hypertension patients use other drugs too,
Right.
so they have to buy all other drugs. But more serious problem with these hypertensive drugs are their side effects are quite serious.
Right. So let's talk about that. I've got a list of side effects here in front of me. So it sounds like there's quite a range. So starting at the sort of less serious end, what are some of the side effects associated?
Some less serious side effect I can mention: hair growth.
Hair growth.
Yeah. So hair growth, for people like me, it may be a good news, but problem with the hair growth with hypertension drug is the hair growth in not so desirable places, arms, chest, back, face.
Right.
So
Cosmetically
is
not too
really
appealing.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's one of the not so serious side effects of this drug.
Right.
But there are many other
more
serious
serious
side effects, yes.
Right. So I have down here that you can feel weak and dizzy on these drugs, fainting spells,
Poor circulation.
Gout, breathing difficulties.
For breathing difficulties, this is fatal, sometimes fatal for asthma patients.
It must absolutely create such a negative situation.
So you should be really careful. Once a person has an hypertension and asthma together, you should be really careful.
Right, right, absolutely. So I also see increased risk of heart attack, palpitation,
Yes.
tremors,
Yeah.
damage to liver and kidneys,
Yeah.
and sexual dysfunction.
Sexual dysfunction due to this hypertension drug is very serious. So a person has hypertension for a while,
Right.
and diabetes, which is very common. And then if they use hypertensive drugs, most of them, almost 100% of them
100%.
have sexual dysfunction. Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so bringing something like Viagra into the mix.
Even worse.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds, Dr. Kim, when you list all those side effects, it makes me wonder if the benefits are outweighing the side effects or vice versa.
Yeah, that's the consensus of this medical circle. The most patients stay hypertensive even with these drugs, and then the long-term benefit is a lot less and fewer than this side effect.
So they remain hypertensive even after they're on these prescription drugs.
That's correct.
And in the long run, it sounds like the side effects outweigh the benefits.
And then what makes the situation even worse is recently we found that the many hypertension drug causes and triggers diabetes. So these drugs actually are found to be the causes of diabetes.
So some of these, you're telling me some of these prescription drugs are actually causing diabetes?
Yes, and then all makes the diabetes treatment very difficult.
Sounds like it absolutely creates chaos.
Yeah, so of those classes of drugs we mentioned, especially diuretics and beta blockers, those two are very, very dangerous drugs for diabetes patients, or they cause diabetes. So they are very bad.
Absolutely. And I've also heard that if you're taking other different types of medications for, say, arthritis, that taking hypertension medication can create some serious problems.
Hypertension drugs are known to have many adverse interactions with the other drugs.
Right.
Yeah, and then it increases the toxicity of other drugs too.
Right. Penicillin?
Yeah.
Penicillin and
such antibiotics. Yeah.
Exactly.
So hypertension drugs, doctors are not happy to prescribe.
Right. So Dr. Kim, I mean, this all sounds extremely bleak for someone who's just been diagnosed with hypertension.
That's correct, but today I came here to share with you some great news. There are new discoveries, especially in the area of natural treatment. There are some great discoveries. That's why I came here. I'm very happy to be here today.
Good. So Dr. Kim, why don't we take a short break, and when we come back, why don't we talk about some of those new natural methods that you want to talk about with us. Thanks. Welcome back. Dr. Kim, before the break we were talking about some of the natural remedies that you're here to talk to us about, but I think before we get into that, what exactly is hypertension?
High blood pressure, basically. But every living organism has its ability to maintain or restore its balances. So our body has an inherent ability to restore balance. If blood pressure goes too high, it brings it down.
Regulates
it goes down, it brings it up.
Right.
But for hypertensive patients, they lost this ability. That's why they're in trouble.
So their body cannot regulate the pressure.
And then at first it progresses very slowly, then it speeds up.
Right. And so before the break, when we were talking about the prescription drugs, and we were getting into some of the side effects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of the things you were saying is that there's a really quite a short-term relief from these pharmaceutical drugs.
That's correct. Only temporary relief.
Right.
In exchange for permanent dependence.
Right. That was the point I wanted to make. Sounds like there's dependency on these drugs. The body becomes dependent.
Body's ability, inherent ability,
right,
to restore its own balance becomes weaker and weaker.
Right.
So they depend upon these chemicals. For example, I mentioned that there is a certain chemical the body releases to relaxes its blood vessels, and then if we use these hypertensive drugs to relax these blood vessels, and body takes it as a signal that
it doesn't need to do it.
Yeah, so that part of the function is become lazy, and at some point it stops functioning.
Right.
Then that person has to take that drug permanently.
Right. So would it be true to say then that just more and more drugs are required to do the same thing?
Yeah. So more dosages.
Right.
And then even more varieties.
Right.
So that's the fate of this hypertensive patients who begin to use these drugs.
And so on the other hand, when we talk about natural remedies, how are those working on hypertension?
That's the beauty of this natural treatment. Natural treatment is not only good for this symptom treatment, but it restores the body's own ability. So it's the opposite of these chemical drugs.
Right.
So if you choose this natural treatment correctly, the body's own ability to restore its balance, which you call homeostasis.
Homeostasis, right.
Yeah. So it's restored. That's the beauty of this natural treatment.
And it sounds too like, just on the topic of natural remedies, that it sounds like Western medicine is more open and accepting of this now.
Before, up until 10 years ago, herbal medicine was treated like superstition.
Right.
But now, after lots of researches are done, now established medical circle also accept it.
So let's talk about some of the natural remedies that you're here to share with us. Where do you want to start?
Let me first share with you what is called LBM treatment.
LBM treatment.
Yeah, it used to be the Indian treatment, but it became very popular in Tibet. And then about 30 years ago, it was taken up by Chinese scientists. These days, Western scientists also joined the bandwagon. And then LBM treatment is herbal treatment.
Right.
Very safe. It is known to cleanse the blood vessel. So it helps the...
So it cleans like cholesterol?
Yeah, it is helpful for arteriosclerosis patients.
Which is the hardening of arteries.
Yeah, and then it is also known to stop the aging process too. It's a beautiful treatment.
Stopping the aging process. That's something I want to hear more about.
And then these days the Western scientists succeeded in isolating the active ingredients they identified the active ingredients of this LBM formula, which is quercetin.
Right.
And then so they are starting the synthesizing these active ingredients chemically.
So they're interested in it.
Yeah, but I prefer the natural form rather than synthesized chemical form. Yeah.
Right, that makes sense. And so what would be another method, natural method of treating hypertension?
I'd like to mention P700 hypertension formula.
P700.
Yeah, and it was originally developed as a diabetes treatment by a Canadian university. But they found out that it not only reverses diabetes, but it also reverses hypertension.
So it works with both diseases.
Yeah, so they applied this knowledge to develop the hypertension formula per se.
Right.
So it's called P700
Right.
hypertension formula.
Right.
That's also very safe, very effective, and then it's a very well-known formula.
So how many people would be taking
It is
something like
known that
P700?
50,000 people.
So that's quite high numbers.
And that is well accepted by the experts by many countries.
Wow,
Yeah.
that sounds really exciting. So are there any other natural formulas?
DASH is what I'd like to mention. DASH.
DASH.
Diet approach to stop hypertension.
Diet approach to stop hypertension.
DASH.
Right,
It's
so
called.
that's the
It's
acronym.
very famous. It is invented by Dr. Morse, who is a very prominent scientist, and then by 4 other medical doctors. In the beginning, nobody really believed their claims because they all thought that this claims is outrageous.
So what are the claims?
Within 14 days, without drugs, people become normal.
So 14 days, hypertension gone.
Yeah, without drugs.
How?
Basically by means of taking more high fiber
Right.
and then more vegetables. It's
So
amazing.
Is it substantiated?
Yeah, it not only substantiated these days, even American Heart Association
Which is a very credible organization.
officially endorses this treatment.
Wow.
And then National Institute of Health, NIH, financially supports this study.
So they believe in it.
And then New England Journal of Medicine carries not only one article, but series of articles
On this.
on this treatment. So it became an established fact.
So that sounds really positive.
That's so. For hypertension, there are many news that brings us hope here.
Absolutely. That sounds like it. And by the way, what are the causes of hypertension?
There are many, not only one. Of course, the genes play some role. And then ethnic variations play some role too. For example, Afro-American male have such a higher incidence than the rest of the population.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the
Gender play a role at all?
Yeah, the before menopause, women seldom have hypertension.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the after menopause,
Post-menopause.
yeah, they virtually become the same.
Equal.
Yeah.
Right.
And then most important factor is lifestyle, such as eating habit.
Right.
And
Not enough vegetables, not enough fruit.
and lack of exercise.
Right. So our Western diet contributes.
That's the Western lifestyle.
It's interesting, Dr. Kim, as you describe those causes of hypertension, because it sounds an awful lot like diabetes.
That's correct. Actually, these two diseases are so closely related. Some people say these two diseases come from the same root.
So diabetes and hypertension are that
Let me
connected.
give you a few statistics.
Yeah, that would be great.
75% of diabetic patients have hypertension.
Wow, that's high.
Yeah. And then 70% of diabetic patients eventually die of coronary diseases such as stroke and
Right.
heart failure,
Heart
which
failure.
are direct consequences of
hypertension.
And
Wow.
then so people say it is inevitable for diabetic patients to become hypertensive and vice versa.
And
It is
hypertension.
inevitable for hypertensive patients
To become diabetic.
Yeah. So these are two most deadly combination of diseases.
Absolutely. And Dr. Kim, do you remember in the other section of the show where you were talking about the side effects of the prescription drugs? One of the side effects was that it would actually cause or worsen diabetes from the drugs.
Yeah, for example, the diuretics. It removes the not only the potassium, which is a very important nutrient, but also it triggers the insulin resistance, which is the cause of this diabetes, right? And then another thing is that once you have an insulin resistance, it hardens the artery. And then also it makes the kidney more sensitive to sodium.
Right.
So it becomes more and more difficult to handle the sodium.
It sounds
So
like a vicious cycle.
it just intensifies each other.
Right, right.
So the treatment of hypertension
Yeah.
worsens and aggravates the diabetes.
Right. When you say the treatment, you're talking about the prescription drug treatment.
Yeah, and especially diuretics and beta blockers are infamous for aggravating this diabetes.
It's incredible.
But many doctors are quite unfortunately are not paying too much.
Not understanding that correlation.
So because these are relatively recent discoveries.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so Dr. Kim, then how would you recommend treating if there's such a close correlation between hypertension and diabetes?
Yeah. What I find, in Western medicine is that they tend to paying too much attention on symptoms only.
Right, treat the symptoms. That's very common,
So
isn't it?
when people have hypertension, they tend to look at the symptoms of hypertension only, without looking at a deep relationship between hypertension and diabetes.
Right.
But in the Orient, the well-established tradition is they look at both hypertension and diabetes. So the treatment of diabetes takes precedence over the symptomatic treatment of hypertension. But they look at the symptoms too, but the main emphasis on the treatment is fundamental treatment of diabetes rather than symptomatic treatment of hypertension.
So treat the diabetes, and in the process, your hypertension is going to be positively impacted as well.
So it is a very well-known fact that if diabetes is under control, hypertension is under control too.
So they are really closely
They
correlated.
are very closely correlated.
So Dr. Kim, before we go to a break, just want to check one more thing out with you. So sugar and its relationship to diabetes, salt and its relationship to hypertension. We have a lot of both of those in our North American diet. Can you comment on that?
They are both white powders, right?
Absolutely.
Do you also know that in ice cream there's quite a bit of salt?
No, I wouldn't think it. It's so
actually,
sweet.
salt in ice cream makes ice cream sweeter because it prevents so-called crystallization of sugar.
Right.
But actually, you must have noticed that in fast food chains, they make hamburgers and French fries very salty,
Very salty.
to increase the craving of soft drinks.
So you're saying that the foods that are extremely salty, in particular in fast food, is going to increase my craving for something sweet.
Yeah, and then vice versa, very sweet food.
So I'm a sweet soft drink now, and I want more fries.
For
Is that
example,
kind of how it works?
ice cream, those kind of sweet food,
Right.
increases the cravings of salty food. So they intensify each other.
This is fascinating.
That's what's
Again, there's another correlation here.
That's behind this so-called supersize syndrome.
Supersized syndrome.
Do you know that the one serving of the fast food chain is like 2 to 3 times larger than before?
Unbelievable. Well, the hamburgers look bigger to me.
And then without this mutual intensifying of salty food and sweet food, you cannot eat that much.
So by adding sugar and salt to the foods, we're eating more.
So that's behind this overeating syndrome.
And how does advertising factor into all of this?
They spend billions of dollars of advertisement. For example, in North America, an ordinary child is exposed to 40,000 times of advertising. Basically, it says, eat more, eat more, eat more.
That's incredible.
And then before the age of 10 or 11, they cannot distinguish the program from advertising.
So they don't even know they're being hit with an advertisement.
They think of this as teachers saying, you should eat this.
Unbelievable.
So
the rise in childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, all these sound like they're offshoots of what you're just describing.
That's correct. So, and then that's why people begin to mention conspiracy. And then, so with the bombardment of salty food, sweet food, and supersizing, and they cause this hypertension, obesity, diabetes. And then they toss these patients to the pharmaceutical industry, and saying to them, you have to be on this drug forever. Some of them are even the same shareholders.
So that's incredible. I mean, that's definitely something to ponder. So let's pause on that note, take a short break, and when we come back, let's look at some more information on these positive natural remedies for hypertension.
Let's do that. This is how diabetes is linked with hypertension. When you have diabetes, it is often the case that you have insulin resistance. But insulin resistance leads to obesity and arteriosclerosis, which is the hardening of arteries. And then insulin resistance also leads to the weakening of kidney in such a way that kidney cannot handle sodium as well as before. All this leads to more serious hypertension. So, insulin resistance is the key in the linkage between hypertension and diabetes. Now I will tell you how hypertension and diabetes worsen each other. As I explained before, diabetes is often linked with insulin resistance, which is also the cause of obesity, arteriosclerosis, and weakening of kidney that leads to hypertension. But vicious cycle doesn't stop there. When a person has hypertension, they are often told to take a variety of hypertension drugs, but the hypertension drugs they are taking to control hypertension worsens insulin resistance and worsens arteriosclerosis, and it worsens the weakening of kidney. Therefore, the hypertension drugs people take to control hypertension worsens the vicious cycle between the diabetes and the hypertension. So it becomes very difficult to control or cure either one of these diseases. By now it becomes obvious that there is a linkage between diabetes and hypertension, and there exists a vicious cycle that worsens each other, but that's not the end of it. All those sugar and salt in artificial foods and processed foods and fast food chain foods, they worsen each other because they trigger the hungers and cravings for each other, and then they also contribute to the obesity, arteriosclerosis, and weakening of kidney, and these all lead to furthering the vicious cycle between hypertension and diabetes. Now, we all know that as long as we rely on these pharmaceutical drugs to control hypertension, there's no way out of this vicious cycle between hypertension and diabetes. It just worsens each other. But if we begin to use such natural treatment like DASH, P700, LBM, exercise, and acupressure, a beautiful thing happens in the form of cutting the linkages between all these vicious cycles. The linkage between insulin resistance and obesity is cut, and linkages between insulin resistance and weakening of kidney is cut, and insulin resistance itself is removed. Therefore, we can expect the improvement in general health situation of patients.
Welcome back. Dr. Kim, continuing on with the topic of salt, which we were talking about before the break, I've often heard people say that if you have high blood pressure or hypertension, that salt is bad for you. Can you comment on that?
Here's a huge controversy between the two camps of scientists. People say, a group of people say, salt is bad for your hypertension if your hypertension is sodium sensitive.
So what are they really saying?
To me, it sounds like a circular logic.
It doesn't sound like there's any news there.
Yeah, so it's like salt is bad if salt is bad.
Salt is bad, right? Okay.
But the fact is, we need a certain amount of salt every day for our metabolism.
Right, minimum requirement.
And our immune system will be totally confused if we lack of salt.
Right.
So we have to take some salt. So it's wrong to expect that no sodium diet is possible. No, it is not possible.
So it's not so much then about the salt as about...
Oh, so these days there are more sensible positions regarding this debate. They say it is not about salt. It is the balance between potassium and sodium.
So potassium and sodium
that's,
in your body, that's the balance.
So they say potassium, which is essential nutrient anyhow.
Right.
And then the potassium, if our body is supplied with enough potassium, the body can handle sodium quite well, actually.
So if you're giving your body enough potassium, you can have a diet with some salt in it.
And we just mentioned the linkages between hypertension and diabetes, right?
Right.
Potassium cuts that link too.
So it's a powerful ally.
Potassium is a very, very important nutrient.
And potassium can be found in what type of foods? Bananas?
Tomato and potato.
Right.
And grapefruit.
Grapefruit, just to name a few. I'm sure there's lots.
Very healthful foods.
Right.
No matter whether you have diabetes or hypertension.
Right.
Those are good foods anyhow for your body.
So important to know that.
By the way, the chemical name of potassium is kalium.
Kalium.
And you must have heard the words like alkaline.
Absolutely.
So they are from the same word, kalium, alkaline.
Interesting. So that's where that comes from.
So the alkaline balance, acidic balance, they all relate to this potassium.
Interesting. So it's all stemming from the same
thing.
thing.
Potassium is a very important nutrient.
Right. And you were saying before in the first section when we were talking about the side effects of prescription drugs, that in fact, when you're on these prescription drugs, that your blood pressure actually becomes sensitive to salt.
That's correct. The one of the classes of the drugs we mentioned, diuretics in particular. Diuretics removes the potassium from the body. So actually, body becomes more sodium sensitive.
Right. So you can't have as much salt because you don't have the potassium in your
that it worsens hypertension, and you have to take more. It worsens, you have to take more. So vicious cycle sets in right there.
Right. So Dr. Kim, you said earlier that we need salt in our diet.
That's correct.
Is there a good salt out there?
I can say there's something called bamboo salt.
Bamboo salt.
It's very popular in the Orient. And then basically it's the salt from the sea, not from mine.
Right.
And then it is placed inside the bamboo, and then it is burnt at a very high temperature, 1000 degrees Celsius.
So what is the impact of that?
Then molecular structure of the salt changes. It used to be sodium chloride.
Right.
Now it becomes potassium chloride. So they say it cures hypertension. Of course, there was a lot of...
Because you're already balancing the potassium and the sodium in the salt itself.
Correct. There was a big debate about this, but now the scientific evidence accumulates more and more in support of this bamboo salt. It's a very healthful salt.
So that definitely sounds like something to keep our eye on.
But it's a little bit more expensive than ordinary table salt. But I see its benefit obviously overweighs
the cost.
A little bit of extra
Slight
cost.
increase in the cost.
I really recommend this bamboo salt to everybody.
Absolutely. So we'll keep that in mind. So Dr. Kim, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the impact of exercise on hypertension.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Exercise is one of the most underemphasized issue regarding hypertension.
Right.
Let me give you the statistics first. If a person walks 40 minutes every day, briskly, 30% of hypertensive patients become normal permanently.
That's incredible.
It's good news.
Yeah, let's stop there. This is big because what you're talking about is something as simple as walking.
As opposed to we sounded so hopeless when you're talking about these pharmaceutical drugs, but something as simple as this walking every day 40 minutes. 30% of patients become normal permanently.
Just from walking.
Yeah.
So this is not complicated. This is not hard to do.
Yeah, of course, it takes some discipline.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's simple.
Discipline versus pharmaceutical drugs for the rest of your life. I don't know.
And the 40
that there's
minutes
a
of walking
comparison.
is good for your health anyhow.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
That's incredible.
Yeah. Everybody should do this.
So exercise, it's simple. It's a simple solution. And what about, you mentioned something about acupressure in conjunction with exercise?
We just mentioned, let me just say it again.
Yeah.
40 minutes of everyday walking.
This is not something to ignore.
Okay.
This is a big point.
And if you combine this 40 minutes of walking with simple acupressure.
And acupressure is?
Gentle massaging of these acupuncture points.
Right.
There is a hollow points between the skull and neck.
Right. And this is going to be on the website.
Yeah,
this
we'll give a detailed map
Okay,
where to give massage. And if you massage there on a regular basis, gently, 80% of people become normal within 6 weeks.
Whoa. So 80%
No
of
drugs.
people with high blood pressure, if they're combining that 40 minutes of walking
Yes.
with acupressure and deep breathing.
Deep breathing, meditation. Deep breathing helps with the stress.
Everything.
Stress really increases
Okay,
your
so
blood
Dr.
pressure.
Kim, you're
right?
giving us an incredibly simple solution. Why don't people do this?
Misconception, widespread misconception. And then people think that when you have a disease, you have to take drugs. For some diseases, that's true. But for hypertension, there are other things you can
There's
do.
options, which
That's
actually
correct.
I think this is a really good point to bring this up at this moment, Dr. Kim, is just to remind viewers not to stop taking their prescription drugs. They may be really excited about what we're talking about on the show
That's
today,
very important.
but don't just stop.
Yeah, that's very important because these hypertensive patients are already so much dependent upon these chemical drugs. If you stop it abruptly, it's very dangerous.
Serious ramifications.
Yeah. So any suspension, any reduction of these prescription drugs should be consulted with your physician in prior.
Right. So
Otherwise,
that's an
it's
essential
dangerous.
point.
Yeah, that's the essential point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, Dr. Kim, we've spoken about a lot of natural remedies for hypertension. We've spoken about LBM, P700, the DASH method, and then just more recently we spoke about exercise and acupressure. So as somebody watching who has hypertension, how do they know how to combine, what to choose? How do we rank these natural methods?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me go slow here.
Great.
For the symptoms, for the control of hypertension symptoms, I recommend LBM treatment and acupressure.
Right, so for symptomatic relief.
Yeah, because the effects are faster, and you can experience the control of this high blood pressure symptom very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, this acupressure especially.
Right.
And the LBM also are very safe treatment for the symptoms of this high blood pressure. But for fundamental, long-term treatment, if you want to expect the reversal of hypertension, I would recommend exercise and P700 hypertension formula.
So that's more of the long-term, sustained
So,
normalizing, as you call it.
So we are actually taking two-pronged approach.
Right.
One symptomatic approach, one long-term approach. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for symptomatic approach, you take LBM and then acupressure.
Right.
For long-term approach, exercise and P700.
Right, right.
So that's the combination I would rather recommend.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it also sounds, Dr. Kim, like there are a lot of exciting developments in the treatment of hypertension from a natural perspective.
We can be very hopeful here.
It looks like there's a lot of new ones on the horizon as well. Yeah. And so we should mention again the website, which will be shown on the screen. And so if you have any questions or want to know more information about anything we've spoken about on the show, just simply access the website. In the meantime, I think it's really important to remind people that don't despair. We're not without hope if we have hypertension. We can be hopeful.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Dr. Kim, for being my guest on the show, for coming and sharing with us this insight and wisdom into this issue of hypertension.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much.